today it was just too hot for me to do anything outside until nighttime. It's about 9 p.m. so there's nothing like to really draw out here at night, so I thought I'd just kind of put together something interesting on a table and sit out here to draw. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it in watercolor and just kind of do a sketch. I'm not gonna go crazy with it. I'm just gonna do something simple, I think, and do my best and give myself maybe like about an hour and see what happens. This is my setup. And the kind of funny thing is I'm gonna have to like kind of slouch down to get the view that I want every time. So I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna work that out. Okay, this is where I've gotten to. So I want to add some white highlights with like a acrylic pen, but I need to wait for this to dry a little bit better before I can do that. So that is what I'm gonna do. Okay, these Jelly Roll pens are not bright enough white. It's kind of what I thought was gonna happen. That was what I remembered them being like. I need something that's like really bright and really opaque. So I am gonna go get the Molotow. I actually just have an acrylic refill, and I literally usually just pour a little bit of that into like a well, and then I just use a paintbrush with it, and it just works the best out of anything. And if I keep it in a pen, the pen always dries up, so it's just actually just easier to do it that way. But it is like the whitest, most opaque acrylic paint, so I'm gonna go get it right now. Like I was saying, I really don't get why everybody goes on and on about those Jelly Roll pens. I've just never found that they worked the way I wanted them to. And they also like pick up the paint below them pretty easily. So yeah, I mean, I guess they're probably okay if you want like a certain kind of look, but if I'm putting like painting in white on my watercolor, I want the white to have a punch, you know, I want it to be like really white. So this is what I use. See, it's a marker refill. And I just pour like a little bit of it into one of these wells, and then I just use a teeny tiny little paintbrush. And that's what I do. So it works the best in my experience. Like, it's the only thing that I don't have to worry about drying up all the time. So, and in Arizona, man, these paint pens, they just dry up. I don't love having to fuss with acrylic paint when I'm doing plein air stuff, but it did turn out much better when I add those little highlights. I mean, you can finally tell that's glass. You can tell which things are shiny. It just really adds. And that paint works the best. My favorite part is actually, it doesn't seem to pick up the watercolor, whereas the gel pen was kind of picking up the watercolor below it a little bit. So that's nice. And so that's good to know if you need to know that. You know, I could have gone in and fixed this spot on the candle, but for some reason I kind of like that flaw. I don't know why. So that's a fun one. I like it better than I thought I would. I wasn't feeling super inspired earlier, but I feel like I kind of worked it out. So yeah, I like that one. Today I am at Usery Mountain Regional Park. And it's another hot day today, not quite as bad as yesterday. It got to like around 92, I think, today. No breeze whatsoever. And it does just kind of feel less awful than yesterday for whatever reason, though. I'm not sure why. So I have, because it's kind of hot, there's like nobody here, and I have found a nice little picnic table. Feels like luxurious, and I'm looking at where the sun will be going down. So my plan here is I'm going to be using my Daniel Smith colors, and I'm using my Magnani 1404 cold press paper. All right, I initially did not want to use pen to sketch on here because it's like kind of a rough surface, but the idea of like sketching this in with pencil and then just basically covering it over again just sounds so annoying. So I'm just going to use pen. So this sunset isn't super great so far. So I'm still waiting it out, see if it gets better. Not sure how much of the foreground I'm going to include or if I'm just going to black most of it out. Okay, I can't see anymore. This is what I have. It's kind of cool. I can't tell what the colors really look like anymore. I was kind of doing it from like, I remembered what this color looks like. Kind of funny. Anyway, That was an experience. It'll be interesting to see what this looks like when I take home and put it in like actual light. So I wasn't totally sure what this actually looked like until I got home, which is pretty funny. I feel like I still have some things to do, but I'm not unhappy with it. One thing I noticed when I was out there was that, I don't know if you guys remember, but I used this paper on I think it was day 4. I was painting a sunset by the canal, and I talked about how I might go ahead and just turn this into a watercolor block. And then of course I promptly forgot about that entire idea. So when I went to go start painting on this, I forgot again that it was not a watercolor block, and the paper just started curling up big time. And that was like kind of a struggle the whole time. So, oh, and it leaked through on the other side. Great. Didn't even notice that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm not going to staple it, I don't think, because I don't really want to put staple marks on the edges of this one. But I am going to wet the back and then stick it to this gator board I've got everything on right now. And I'm hoping that that will keep it flat enough to finish this. If not, I might be stapling it. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. Little spritz bottle. Hoping I can get it to stick. I might have to let it curl back up and then curl down again. So I will walk away and let this kind of go through its little process for a minute, and then maybe I'll even spray this gator board. That's probably what I'll do too. I'm trying to get it to kind of stick. So come back in like 5 minutes. Usually that's about how long this takes. All right, well, that's a lot flatter than it was. It's not perfectly flat, but it's not perfectly dry on the back either, so maybe it'll flatten more. So I've been staring at this, and I've got all sorts of things I want to do. I need to finish this tree, and I was going to use the graphic pen. It's the one that's shaped like this. And, let's see if I can, there we go, shaped like that. You can use like the edges to kind of dig in, and this paper kind of probably needs that because it's so rough. So I'm hoping that'll kind of make it easier to make some lines. I'm going to use this acrylic brush, hopefully, to lift some lines out of this saguaro. We'll see. It may not work. I don't know if this black stains that much or not. I'm going to go in, and that saguaro needs more darkness. Some of these areas right against the skyline need to be darker. So I'm going to kind of work on that. And I'm kind of trying to decide how to do some of that without getting rid of some of these cool effects, because they kind of like create the bush depth, and I like that. And this area in here, I'm trying to decide if there's like a little bit more I can do to kind of clean it up and make it more interesting. And this area is too blank. It needs something. So I have a few things to do. I may attempt to go in and lift out just a little bit more in this cloud area. Because I did that with like a paper towel while I was there. I lifted some of the pink out and then painted back in some clouds. And like this paper in particular lifts really well. So I feel like I may have a chance to make it happen. We'll see. But so this pink here is that new Daniel Smith Coral Reef color. And I'm really excited about that. I used it up here too, in all these clouds. I've really been wanting a color like that to use for sunsets because it was just really hard to mix something quite like that when I was doing with the colors that I had in my palette. So yeah, I have a few things to do. I'm going to play around. I tell you, the more I play with this paper, the more I really, really like it. It's, I mean, could you see that? I was just using like that acrylic brush, which is like, I think it's a bright, it's a pretty stiff brush, but I was able to lift that so easily, like it's ridiculous. I was even able to lift more of the clouds in there to give them that kind of streakier look that they had. I mean, that was cool. Like honestly, that's pretty hard on like some paper, so I was pretty happy about that. I really like this new coral reef color. Man, it really like, these are the colors the sunset really was right after the sun went down. And it's always like a really hard color to capture on my phone. Like even when I take photos of it, and I'm sure I probably took one, it just like, it blows out the oranges and the reds in a funny way, and they're just never quite the right color on the phone. It's weird. So maybe they'll fix that eventually, but they have not fixed it yet. So this is a Palo Verde tree over here. So when I was sitting there, and I could show you what my shot really looked like. While I was sitting there, this saguaro was farther over and this tree was farther over. And I pulled them in to frame the picture because the original like viewpoint I had would have looked great if it had been like a horizontal aspect ratio. But since I have a square piece of paper here, I had to kind of like rearrange some things. I left a lot of texture happening up here, but I kind of like it. I think it kind of adds like cool interest. And I did hem and haw back and forth about that, you know, because it is like really tempting to kind of try and fix that, but I don't think I should. And then I tried to leave some of the natural kind of like granulation and things that were happening already in this area, because they already started to look like the way the bushes were kind of looking kind of at a depth. So I tried to just kind of like paint plants over it to kind of, you know, give it more shape and everything. And then this one over here, so I went and did the thicker lines with that graphic 2 pen. And as I suspected, it kind of, because it's really stiff and it's kind of just a bigger, thicker nib, I was able to like dig through that cold pressed paper and make a smoother line with it. And I used that over here on these spines too. And then to do some of the finer details in the tree, I went back to the 1, but I was okay with that looking kind of shaky because I wanted those details to look kind of teeny tiny and you know, a little bit more textural like these ones do. And you can see too when you look at this that one thing to know about that coral reef color is it does seem to have just a little bit of opacity. So it kind of like, you know, it kind of lightened up the blacks on some of this. And I thought that was fine for the look of this, but if I didn't want it to do that, that's a thing to know. So, yeah, this is a fun one. And by the way, I'm gonna turn down the light a little bit. It's actually kind of blowing this out a bit. There. That is actually more what the color looks like. It's interesting how that can kind of really change your perception of it. So today, I am at Papago Park, which is by the ASU campus, kind of, in the middle of Phoenix. And it's got these really cool rock formations. I'm not gonna get out and walk around though, because it is like 92 degrees and there's just no shade at this park. I've tried walking around here before and it is just, it's kind of brutal. So I am gonna draw from my car though. I have a nice little view and the Palo Verdes are starting to bloom and it looks nice. I have brought with me are some of my water-soluble Pentel markers and then just a water brush. And my plan was to just do a little sketch and then kind of use the water brush to kind of smear some of it around to make it shaded. Okay, that is all I have time for right now. Not bad. I obviously need to go in and finish adding color and shading, but it's a good start. So this was the view. This was this. Yeah. Not too bad. right, so this is where we're at with this one. So in the original photo, and I'll show that here, there are these beautiful yellow flowers. And you know, it's not really possible to like make that happen with this color set, even though I actually really do like the colors that I have here. So I like it as it is, but God, I just really want to try and add some little pops for the flowers. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my gold pen, good old trusty gold pen. So this is the Pen Touch Gold. And I don't know why, but every time I have the white ones of those too, and I do really like those pens. They're not that opaque, but they have a good effect on their own that I like to use. It's kind of more subtle. But the white ones always dry out like fast. And I've recently found out that you can replace the nibs on those, and that's like really the problem, is that the nib itself kind of like cakes up. I'm gonna try and order some of those and see if I can fix it, because I hate that, like having a pen just die on you when it still has good ink in it. So this one has gold in it, and it's like a darker gold color, but it actually kind of matches this like kind of goldish color that I have in here. So I actually think that they won't show up unless it's glinting in the light, which might be kind of cool. So this is a good time to experiment though, you know, this is like a fun sketch thing. I'm going to do it on those, and then I may even add some to the bark of the tree, because this is a Palo Verde tree and it should be kind of like shiny in the sun as well. But I'll see what I think of it before I do that. Okay, I did that, and of course getting it to show up is always like a fun little game. So it's not a very thick layer of the paint, so some of them are just not as reflective. You can see here now the gold. It's funny how these things can show up in real life but be like really difficult to film. So that's what's going on here. So anyway, I do like this one. I think using these Pentel pens gives it kind of a lot of energy, you know, because they're all just like little fine point pens, and they have like a little bit of texture to them. They don't create like a smooth surface ever. It's always like a little bit liney, so you have to kind of work with that. That's a fun drawing to do. And then, so my little Gamble quail, I had fun with that. And then this was a little blackbird that was over there. And these were like really attractive trees, so that was cool. Yeah, I like working with those markers. It's relaxing. I am at the Gilbert Riparian Preserve, and the sun finally came out. It was cloudy and sad all day. And we got a spot next to the lake, which doesn't happen very often. And right now we are watching the show of the ducks chasing each other around territorially, I believe. And of course, Lucky is just all worked up because he sees dinner running around in front of him, and we won't let him have it, so. Oh, that's a grackle, right? Yeah. Okay. I think the grackles are very mischievous. They're like crows. What's he got? He got something.
I think it's an earthworm.
Oh, okay.
It's like somebody's fishing bait.
All zoomed in on him. Let's see what he's got here. I'll check out those ducks. Those are pretty cool ducks. I've got a box to put my things on. I've got a casserole dish that is holding my new Plein Air Sennelier pastel set. Very excited. I haven't used it even once. Those clouds now. Those are cool. So this is the first time using these, so I'm getting used to this still. But there's a good set of colors in here for this. So you saw that radiant sunset. It is gone. It's amazing how fast it just disappears, right? But this is what I have so far. I didn't get to do the water, but I got the rest of it on there. And what I really like about oil pastels is that you can just do that quickly. I mean, I was really able to get on there fast, and this set has great colors for what I needed it for, so that's exciting. So when I get home, I'll do the water, and maybe I'll try to add some ducks. So, might have wondered, why did I need such a big container? So, this is a casserole carrier. Zoom out a bit here. There you go. This is a casserole carrier, and I decided to use this because I've been reading this book on using oil pastels because I am still very new at them. And the writer recommended bringing like a setup that you had ice packs so that you could keep your pastels from melting. Now this is of course for warm weather, but you know, this is Arizona, so it's like warm weather a lot. So I thought, oh, this is a great idea. This is a thing I need to do. But the problem is that the pastel container itself was too big for a lot of like lunch boxes and other kind of insulated containers. So I ended up with a casserole carrier, which is pretty cool, actually. I like this thing, and it keeps it all upright, which is nice. So this has a nice little like pocket on the outside, so you could potentially put like a notepad in there or something else. And then inside here, I had some paper towels and some gloves. I also had my blending tools. I didn't get to use them while I was out there, so I'll be using them now. I have a big plastic bag, and it's like one of those ones you get from like Michael's or another like big craft store. And I really just had this in case I needed to put this down like on a table or something to keep the oil pastels from getting everywhere. So here's my blender box, right? And I feel the bottom, and it's nice and chilly because underneath I have a little towel to get any condensation if that happens. 2 flat ice packs. Now I have like 8 of these actually. So it was like 80 degrees outside today, and by the time I got out there it was probably like 76 maybe. So I wasn't super concerned about it at all. But if I was going out in like, let's say maybe 90-degree heat, I would probably use all of them and maybe put some on top. So, but it did keep it nice and cool in here, and that's pretty exciting. So that will definitely be a tip that I will be using, and I'm pretty happy about that. So I've also heard that some people like to use the pastels in the heat when they're trying to do a lot of blending. So that's another thing to know that I may try. Now let me show you what I was carrying. So once I finished it, my picture, I of course couldn't go sticking it back in the container because it would just get pastel everywhere. So I brought this plastic bin to keep everything in. And that's what it looks like right now. So I chose the Strathmore Mixed Media Tone Blue paper. Still not sure how I feel about that. The tone blue kind of like, I don't know if it works as well with these colors as I thought it would. We'll see. I'm not done yet. I have noticed that when I was using my Soho Extra Soft Oil Pastels, that this was great paper for it. But with the Sennelier ones, it seems like I might actually prefer having paper that has just a little bit of grit to it. The quality of them is just a little bit different than those Soho ones. Those Soho ones are so insanely soft that they just get everywhere and come off on everything, and it's really easy to just chunk like a lot on top of each other. The Sennelier ones are actually just a little bit harder than that. So I may have to play around a little bit more with my paper choices. Like I said, I don't dislike this one, but I'm not sure that I wouldn't like something that's maybe just a little bit grittier and maybe made more for pastels. So that'll be a thing that I play around with, I think. I really did like, though, working with these out in nature was really nice. Like the colors in the set, I think are going to be great for the scenery around here. I was pretty happy, actually. I didn't sit around like thinking that any of them weren't working. I was actually like even more pleasantly surprised by how well some of them did work. I think it's a very sophisticated palette. So it's exciting. Like I don't remember there being, and I'll have to look again, I don't remember there being a lot of colors that were like really overly bold. But you know, when you're trying to do nature, this makes more sense. So yeah, I'm going to go in, I'm going to add more layers in places, I'm going to do some blending in places, and I'm going to put that water in and try and add a couple ducks. So we'll see where this ends up. Yeah, so I spent like way too long doing that, but you know, I was using the good pastels and it was cool, and I just like wanted to do a good job. I wanted to see what they could do, you know? So my opinion of the colors in that set are that they work really well. They're a good set of colors for doing plein air. So I think they made good decisions when they put all of that together. Yeah, these are fun to work with. They're a little bit harder than my Soho Extra Soft oil pastels. Those ones are like, God, they're like practically like painting with clay or something. So it's like, you know, they all have their qualities. I actually think that it's easier to get some fine lines with these ones. So, yeah. I feel like the sky took a long time. I think if I wanted to add one color to that set, I would add like a lighter blue, because I had to do a lot of mixing to get that blue to happen. And there was this gradient in the sky. I mean, there always is, but this one in particular was pretty interesting. So that's why I spent a long time with it. And I also really liked those clouds. They were cool. All the colors that were happening in the sky right at that time were really neat. Yeah, and I had a lot of fun doing this water with the reflections. That was cool. I was trying to figure out how much texture to put in to make it look right, and that was kind of an interesting challenge. Same thing with the clouds too. Like I painted in like this kind of chunky white and then painted back over it again and just kind of blend it a little bit here and there, but I was trying really hard not to blend all of that out. I wanted to keep a lot of it. So I'm finally going to go to bed. And like I said, I spent too many hours on this. You don't want to know what time it is. So, not sure what the plan is for tomorrow. I'm hoping to finish the one I did last week that had the circles. One of the days this weekend. So, that might happen on either Saturday or Sunday. I don't know.